as much as people say, well, it's like my body, my choice, things like that, I think that because society is inherently patriarchal, and I think because as much as you don't want to admit it, there is this still sort of like idea of something's being taken away from you.
How's it going? My name is Jess and this is Reason. Today we're in London asking people if they think hookup culture is empowering to women. Let's see if the feminists and the conservatives agree on something. Do you guys think hookup culture is empowering to women?
Yeah.
Hookup culture?
Yeah.
I think it depends on the dynamics of it.
What do you mean?
Like, if it depends on like whose terms it is.
Yeah,
It's on,
true. Yeah, you
'cause,
don't
like,
want to be on the man's terms all the time.
Yeah.
It's just sex, really. Like, if you want to have sex as long as you're safe. Do it for anyone, whether you're a man, woman, or you don't identify as either.
To say that there's a norm that may not be empowering, but I think now there's like way more of an ability for women to, I guess, lead the conversation and also, I guess, lead that experience. But as a whole culture, which is also, I guess, related to other cultures, like, I guess, how gender norms and gender hierarchies are sort of structured, not so much, but it's moving towards a much more progressive way, I'd say.
So, do you think hookup culture is empowering to women?
No, I don't. I think the way that it currently is, I think that as much as people say, well, it's like my body, my choice, things like that, I think that because society is inherently patriarchal, and I think because as much as you don't want to admit it, there is this still sort of like idea of something's being taken away from you, or like you have to play hard to get, and all these kind of like games that are part of sort of, I think, hookup culture, and also kind of how objectifying it is. I don't think it's empowering the way it is currently.
So, do you guys think hookup culture is empowering to women?
Probably.
I feel like you can make it empowering to women. Yeah, I feel like women can take that and make it empowering to them.
How?
Ooh, I'm not sure. I can't tell women what to do, but I feel like, I feel like you can navigate it in a way that feels empowering to you, and you kind of take that power away from whoever was trying to take it away from you, if that makes sense, kind of like reclaiming the whole culture of it.
Oh, do you guys think hookup culture is empowering to women?
I think it can be, especially like more nowadays.
Yeah,
I think.
definitely.
Because like I think it can be seen as like it's not to a lot of people, but I mean, in like this day and age with like dating apps and stuff, like I do think it can be in certain circumstances, but I guess it like depends on the guy and like the situation or the girl. Okay.
So, how do you think it's empowering?
That's a difficult one. I think like if it's something you decide that you want to do for yourself and like it's what makes you happy, then that in itself is empowering.
It's got to be a bit of like give and take and like mutual respect. It's not just like getting into it because why the fuck not, and then you feel a bit shit.
Do you think that's a common experience with women? Like they might get into it and then they might feel a bit,
Well, like left in the dark.
Yeah.
Again, it probably depends on how you communicate and the person as well. So, I mean, I don't think I've actually really hooked up. I'm always a relationship person. I've never really had many hookups, so I don't really have much experience in it. But from our friends, like, well, Lou, if you think about Lucia, she's had the worst time, like, on Hinge and things with people going on a first date and then you have sex and then they disappear.
Do you think society encourages hookup culture?
Yeah, definitely. I think, especially when you go to university, things like that, it's almost like a given. You can't really, and I think there's also this idea of like, the concept of virginity and this idea that, you need to let it go at some point, and especially when you go to university, I think there's a lot of pressure there. I definitely think there's a pressure there towards hookup culture if you're not constantly going for long-term relationships, which not many people are, especially when they're young. There's often this idea of when you're young, you need to either be playing the field or, something like that, or just, experiencing different things when maybe that's not how you want to experience your own body and sexuality necessarily.
It's interesting because I feel like while society does encourage women to engage in hookup culture, like you said before, there's also this shame when women do engage in it as well.
Yeah.
So, like, why do you think there's such a double-edged sword with that?
Yeah, it's almost like a losing game, right? Yeah. Because it's sort of, you're encouraged to do it, but then when you do it, it's sort of just like, oh, well, you're that kind of woman.
in the past, for example, I guess like let's say I guess in a really like crude way, horniness would be something I guess a guy would be able to be way more open about compared to a lady. So if a lady was kind of like feeling like she wants to get some, she may have to, whether consciously or subconsciously, indirectly or directly, conflate it with like intimacy in a relationship, because that's what's deemed as sort of like correct, so that they're not like labelled like a sort of someone who's a bit more like slutty, even though a guy can do the same thing and not be called so. So I think they had to like sort of play the game a bit more, whilst the guys were able to be like just like I want this, and then sometimes even lie that they want something else to like get the
Do you not think women just naturally want more intimacy?
I don't think all women do, and I think
Like on average, like more so than men perhaps?
I think so, but then I guess this then goes down to the whole gender norms thing where it's like women being told, or not being told, but like people thinking that this is what everyone wants because it's what everyone wants as a gender, and then men thinking that this is what everyone wants because it's what everyone wants as a gender. So when a guy is more like, oh, I really want intimacy, the lads around him will be like, oh, yeah, and then girls who like want to have like less intimacy, the girls will be like, oh, but da-da-da. So I think it's like that, like it's the tribal gender normative pressure that like makes people want to sort of stick to that whole thing. But then I think genuinely women may want intimacy more, whilst men want, I feel like it's that whole like men have way more external conflicts while women have more internal conflicts, and to deal with the external conflicts men try and go for I guess money, status, power, whilst women then have securities, intimacy and things like that to help silence each of their sort of conflicts